Okay, I will be moving on here. We also have a lot of foster students in the foster care system in our state. And again, students of color are overrepresented in this category. We learn that neglect has become the main reason why students are entering the foster care system. And this neglect is as a direct result of extreme economic hardship, according to statistics. Now, we know over 30% of our students in foster care will face housing insecurity and be unhomed before the age of 17. Students in foster care also have a higher likelihood of becoming involved with the justice system. And an adult, once they age out of foster care, they have a 25% probability of becoming involved with the justice system. There's one extremely disturbing statistic that I read that showed 90% of students in foster care that have experienced 5 or more placements will be involved with the juvenile justice system. 90% of them. I thought that was extremely shocking. And these issues are so prevalent. We have terms for them. They're known as the foster to homeless pipeline and the foster to prison pipeline. Again, because of their high mobility rates, our foster students are also having difficulty and facing barriers to access equitable academic resources. A little known fact about our migrant students: Washington has the second highest population of migrant students in the country. I thought that was very interesting and wanted to share that with you. California being the state with the most migrant students in the country. Our migrant students and their families remain among the poorest and most underserved student groups in the entire country. Currently, the migrant education program here in OSPI reports having about 30,000 students in their program, and about 92% report having Spanish as their primary language. We know that our migrant students also have difficulty obtaining high quality continuous education because of the nature of their work. They're always chasing crops and agriculture and moving at very, very high rates. They have a difficulty accessing high quality continuous education. Additionally, we know students as early as 12 years old can work in fields alongside their parents, often before the start of the school day. Now, this type of work is extremely hazardous to your health. We know these students are exposed to pesticides, as are their families, parasites, and work in really dangerous environments, often exposed to the elements and with dangerous machinery. They have, as a result of being exposed to these health hazardous conditions, they often have higher absenteeism and have, as a result of that, trouble accumulating academic credit. And this greatly impacts their ability to perform well in school. They have intelligence, they have discipline, they have the motivation, but it's really hard to engage in school when you've already been working for hours before you actually get to school, when you're hungry, when you're tired, when you go home and you have to take care of your siblings because your parents are working, when you have all these other things that are so important in your head, like providing for your families, supplementing your family income yourself. So these are some of the things that I wanted to share with you and make you aware. I know many of you educators already know so many of these facts and data that I'm sharing with you, but just in case you didn't, I feel it's so important to honor the sacrifice that these students are making and the hard work that they put into this. Now, sadly, one of the statistics specifically for the migrant education program is that out of school youth, meaning youth that leave high school without a GED or high school diploma, is the fastest growing population of students in the migrant education program. Now, just like our migrant youth, out of school youth, our foster, unhomed, institutionalized, referring to justice involved youth, are also dropping out of school at much higher rates than other student groups. Why am I sharing this with you in this webinar? It's because dropping out of school means that your potential to earn a self-sustaining wage is extremely impacted, negatively impacted. Once you drop out of high school, you're gonna at best make minimum wage. We know inflation is a very real statistic right now, very high statistic right now, and it's going to continue to rise. So we need our students to stay in school, at least finish high school, go to trade school if they don't want to pursue college, so that they can earn enough to make a living, to feed themselves, to meet their needs and some of their wants, and hopefully also help contribute to their families and their communities' financial well-being. Now, I want to share a little bit about how culture impacts our values overall and our financial decision-making. And the reason I'm focusing on this for this webinar is because so many of our students come from different cultures, from different nations, and that number continues to grow year by year. Now, there's a really fun statistic that shows from Dutch psychologist, I think I'm going to butcher this name, please, I hope I don't, but I think I will, Geert Hofstede is a Dutch psychologist that came out with a study that shows 20% of the world's cultures and nations have an individualist financial values and overall values, and the remaining 80% has a collectivist attitude and culture with values and money. What does that mean? So basically, in individualist cultures, people are expected to care for themselves, and achieving the personal goals and personal well-being is put above that of the community or the group. And of course, I mean, it's self-explanatory. Collectivist cultures, they prioritize the well-being of the community and the well-being of the group over the well-being of the individual. The reason why, not yet. The reason why I'm talking about that with you again is because so many of our students, the majority of them that are newcomers, that are English learners, do come from countries that have that collectivist culture, that collectivist mindset, and those collectivist values around financial decision-making. And I feel it's really important to be aware of that and honor that in the classroom, so that when we do present our financial education materials in our classes, we take into account that their priorities may be different from our priorities here in America. They're going to be thinking about gift giving, contributing to their community, and not so much about the personal goals and achieving those personal goals, but more focused in the goal for the community, for the family. Now, there is something called the Cultural Dimensions Index that Mr. Hofstede created. And this index basically measures on a scale of 1 to 100 a country's individualistic tendencies over their collective tendencies. I want you to take a moment and please put in your chat, if you would take a guess, I would appreciate it. If you could guess on a scale of 1 to 100, 100 meaning that the country has the highest individualist tendencies, and 1 being that it has the lowest individualist tendencies, more of a collective tendency, where you think our country, the United States, ranks from 1 to 100, 100 being highest individualist, 1 being lowest. Ooh, okay. I appreciate everybody being so participating in the chat. I like it. Some very close. Okay. Unsure. That's fair. That's fair. I still see people putting some numbers in. I'm going to wait a few more seconds. Okay. Here we go. So you can see right here, the United States has a score of 90. I saw a bunch of 91. I'm sorry. I saw a bunch of people put 90 up there. You were close. Everybody was pretty close, actually. So again, we have that culture where the individual's goals, the individual's values are prioritized. I want to make it clear. I'm not saying one thing is better than the other. I'm just creating that awareness so we all understand a little more about why your students may have different attitudes, different values around their financial decision making, because that's kind of gonna impact the way they receive this information and the way they interpret it. Now, 91, the US is the highest individualist country in this category. And the lowest one is actually, I saw a 6 over here, and it's Guatemala. That's a nation in Central America. followed by, I think, 11. Did I see 11 somewhere here, or is it 12? I see 11, and 11 is Panama, another Latin American nation in Central America. And we have two 12s. We have Venezuela with a 12 and Bolivia with a 12. Those are also Latin American nations, and they are in South America. So if you have students from Guatemala or Panama or Bolivia or Venezuela, and you've observed this, now it all kind of makes sense, and you can connect it to that, to those financial values and the cultural principle behind supporting the community over the individual. Now, again, I want to emphasize one of the reasons why we're focusing on this data for this webinar is because we have more and more students from other countries arriving every year. The latest statistic from OSPI report card data center shows that for the 2021-2022 school year, we actually had 4,000 students enroll as English learners, meaning that they were coming from other countries where, of course, their language was something other than English. Every year, that number continues to rise. This data started to be collected in 2014, 2015. Every year, that number has continued to rise. And when there are issues around the world, warfare, countries with collapsing economies and political system, we can expect to have an increase in newcomers. And that's obviously been happening very sadly. Everybody knows what's happening around the world in the news. So we can expect that number to continue to grow. Now, we already know we have the country with the highest amount of immigrants. 42% of immigrants from around the world come to the United States. That's a pretty high number. And that's, again, going to continue to grow. So it's important to factor in our students' cultures and our students' values and how they impact their financial decisions when we consider resources and our teaching strategies